Oh, okay. I thought you were saying 5. Well, good afternoon to everyone who's tuning in right now.
Live at 5.
I need to
live at 3.
clear out my ears as I thought we were getting the signal we were 5 out from going live, but we are live now.
Go on.
So,
say something.
yes. It's like, hello, anyone home? Well, good afternoon to everyone, and I hope you appreciate our opening comedy this morning. Shane and I are working on a new skit that we'll be doing this Sunday. No, I'm just kidding. Don't want to give that horrific idea in mind.
Yeah, us doing a skit, not good.
Probably not a good idea, especially not with a new series coming out. It's probably not what you really intended.
Probably not a good start
for these weeks to come. But good afternoon to everyone. Thanks for joining us for our weekly live Q&A, where we took this week to wrap up in a very important and awesome series, City on a Hill. And sort of that was a compounded celebration, not only with the end of a series that was so impactful to so many that we have stories to talk about today, but also the culmination of a summer of lifting up RVA. So Shane, now that we're at the end of Lift Up RVA, and the end of, I don't mean the end of Lift Up RVA ever, but the end of our summer emphasis on Lift Up RVA. What's your thoughts on how everything went? There were so many projects that took place.
Well, so many thoughts. First, you know, each project was unique and had a very powerful impact. And I'm amazed by so many things. One of the biggest waves that always hits me, when any group of people join together to help someone, the power of the impact of people coming together is really, really powerful. And all summer long, this isn't something unique to our summers. What's unique about this summer, because our church serves in West End Assembly of God all kinds of ways. We serve all over the world every summer in missions trips. We serve in many different places around the world. Was the fact that we were joining efforts. In fact, we had every single ministry answer this question. How is your ministry this summer, or how is your small group, or how is your kids ministry program, or how is your vacation Bible school, or how is your camp, or how is your small group impacting our city? And how are you serving Richmond? And for us, that's was a wonderful answer. And we heard this resounding impact from our groups ministries and from our kids ministries and youth ministry and our congregation as a whole, our missions department. We heard this huge sound and really answering the call to make a difference in our city. There was so much power in that. So much power. And you know, we've watched it with the youth group. Lift Up RVA came from several years ago. Our own youth group deciding to sacrifice what has been a huge, one of the greatest events we've done in a part of our past is a choir tour. And we just took our musical production of youth and took them on the road, and it was so much fun and a great impact in those different cities. But we wanted to answer the question several years ago, hey, what about staying at home and impacting our city and teaching our teenagers that they can serve right here? I know we can teach them that, but actually doing it and sacrificing something, that's when you really do something. So once we followed their lead, and 2 years later we're as a whole church doing it. Our dream is to watch this happen across our city in all the churches. Lots of churches that are impacting the city. But what would it look like if the community of God came together for, I don't know, for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month, or for the whole summer? I don't know how to do it, but I'm just telling you, I'm just calling on all to come together and serve our city together. That would make a huge imprint of God on our city. And I think that would be really exciting. But aside from that, some other great things I noticed were how willing our ministries were to so quickly set aside whatever their goals were for the summer and say, I'm going to put Richmond first. That was awesome. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was really cool. We saw, you know, the backpacks from the Quioccasin Middle School to the cemetery project that we did, and uncovering graves and helping people connect their ancestry in Richmond, really a people group that long ago were forgotten, and bringing some value to that group of people, as well as helping people connect. Our middle school project was amazing. We had, like close in the 70, 75 people or so, I think 76 people at Quioccasin Middle School.
Yeah,
we
it was a
had
big group. They got way more done than they thought they were going
20
to
or
at that
30
time.
people at that first cemetery. We had another close to 100 people the second cemetery project. That, coupled with all these small groups who were meeting with our English as second language Friday night conversation groups, our backpacks that we're packing for continual Quioccasin Middle School project, downtown. Some of our other churches getting involved. Center Church, they're working with their schools downtown. United Church working in South Forest Hill Corridor with their schools. We are watching churches make a difference and put Richmond ahead of even their own agendas or their own concerns. It's been really, really powerful to watch. So Lift Up RVA was a huge success, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely. And certainly that's been powerful to those that have been witness to it. In fact, because you spoke this Sunday of how Jesus said that it is the unity of my followers, my disciples, that's going to prove how much God loves his people.
Yeah, so we wrapped up the whole series, City on a Hill, and last week with, being the salt of the earth. And then this week, wrapping up our Lift Up RVA to say we are united for RVA. And really, that's probably the most powerful impact this has had. And I think going forward, and Jesus had this prayer, Jim, you referenced it in John 17. And Jesus had this prayer, and he prayed it towards the end of his ministry in front of his disciples for them to hear and be a participant in. But he prayed it to his Father in heaven and said, this is the time where you're going to be glorified through my sacrifice. This is where God is essentially going to give up everything for us to have a relationship with him. But as you have sent me, I am sending my our followers into the world. So I pray that you would protect them from the evil one. I pray that you would make them be able to be a picture of our love for the world, and then would carry the message. And so we said, we talked about this idea that our unity is the proof. It is, forget here. It is the proof, it is the power, and it is the purpose of what God desired for all of us to accomplish as his followers.
Yeah.
We're his proof, the fact that we would show up and to be together. We are his power, that it would take power to overcome the enemy. Obviously there's a war going on of what would be presented, and then we're his purpose to carry his message. But when we attempt to do this, it's so difficult, right? How do you unify a group of people, Everybody has an opinion or has many opinions, you know?
Yeah.
There's always 10 sides to every story. And I think if you can unify a group of people, that's pretty miraculous.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's pretty, and you talk about a church our size, thousands of people who are gathered together, and
and so many different types of people too.
so many different cultures. We have
Yeah.
people from other countries
Yeah.
who are in our church. We have people who are in we have 4 different generations serving together in our church. 4 currently serving: the millennials, the Xers, the boomers, the builders. 4 generations that are serving in our church, and then Gen Z right behind them in our youth group. And what that represents, really 5 generations, because our kids are serving all over the place.
They are. Lisa does an amazing job of teaching our kids how to be leaders, even at their age.
So you
amazing.
have generational gaps.
Yeah.
Imagine unifying we have 3 different styles of worship. We have 3 services right now all summer long. We've had 4. We went to 3 for the summer at one service time. So 3 different services at 10 a.m. Every single one of them are a completely different style. We have choir and orchestra in one of them. We have a total, where we're sitting now, our band-driven contemporary worship. And then across, down the hallway, we have our Latino service. That's Latin music with worship, and 3 different completely styles as one church.
Yeah.
We have different preferences, just like everywhere else. Good grief, in your own family, imagine just deciding together where we should eat. Right? Or
You know my family well.
decide to go where we're going to go on vacation, right?
Yes.
Some
It
people
can be a
love the
challenge.
history and
Yes.
touring, and other people just like to go do fun
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody's got different. God, I think what Jesus' prayer was a miracle.
Yeah.
He's praying for a miracle. And he was saying, this will be the proof to the world that God, that you sent me, that they have unity. That's a pretty huge thing to strive for. And
Yeah.
it's something, we're not getting it perfect done here either.
No, no.
But we are striving. And really, Richmond led us through that.
Yeah.
So each week in the series, we took a focus on a different hill. And there are 7 hills that are pretty famous or infamous in Richmond. We didn't know how infamous they were until we looked into it and saw the just disunity everywhere, a part of Richmond's history. And so I thought it was a good thing to cap our whole summer with,
Yeah.
to have this discussion. And really the series unified our people.
It really
We
did.
had a lot of stories come in
Yeah.
that were pretty amazing too. And I have some of those emails if you want me to
Absolutely. I know there was something that, as I was reading them, something pretty
Yeah.
powerful around each one. And one thing that I thought was great and proof of just how unifying coming together for something like our city can be is that we had folks who were able to overcome even physical limitations. So you shared a story of somebody who is handicapped, who was able to still participate. So this isn't something
Yeah.
that you've got to be a young, able-bodied
Yeah.
person that can lift X amount of weight in order to do. No matter your circumstances, you could join in lifting up RVA. And so, Shane, perhaps you might want to share that
Sure.
story, even though you read that one in service. Some folks may be watching.
Yeah, I
that
think it was a
missed
great email that came in that said, hey, I have a handicap,
Yeah.
and I really appreciated that you allowed us. And this person worked with our pregnancy center,
Yeah.
as well as packing backpacks for our school. And so there were 2 projects they got to be involved in regardless of their physical ability. And then some of these other emails that came in, which are pretty cool, they talked about the sermon series itself, which was City on a Hill.
Yeah.
Each sermon has really provoked a lot of thought, one person said, and stirring my spirit. It made me stop, go back to the scriptures, reread passages with a fresh lens. It made me want to dig into a lot of topics so that I can be grounded, and we have the ability to teach my daughter the Spirit-led truth, not my truth. That was really cool. Another person said, this series has been great. I've especially enjoyed the history info on all these places in our city, speaking of the hills.
Yes.
Very impactful image, going to church on Church Hill on Sunday, and the next morning walking down the hill to buy or sell people. It's pretty powerful. I've been challenged by the information. So many people with so many needs in our local community.
Yeah.
Another person said, I'm proud to be a member of a faith community that does the things that are right but not easy. Educating people about injustice is important, and it gives them an opportunity to make a decision if they want to be a true follower of Jesus or if the cross is just too heavy to carry. Whew. Thank you
words
for
right there.
inspiring us to make personal sacrifice so that we may see God's kingdom. Here's another one. I'm so relieved today's message that I shared a sermon on Facebook for the first time in my life.
Yay.
I hope that you'll share more after
Social
this.
media team thanks you.
Yes. To have the pastors of a church our size willing to speak the truth, knowing that there are going to be people out there that might not want to hear it, but it was spoken anyway. My goodness, thank you. I've been looking forward to this series, but I was afraid that I would be disappointed. I'm not. I haven't been this encouraged at church ever. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So those are
Thank you.
just some of the cool emails, and I think there are 1 or 2 more. But
Yeah. This last one here that
a great book. I think it's Brian.
I was going to say, do you recall the author? Sorry to put you on the spot.
I wanted to say, always want to say Ingersoll because that's Jim Ingersoll,
Yes.
but not him.
Not a Fan is the title of the book.
Ingalls. Oh, well, we'll put it up there. We'll
That's
post
right.
it for you.
Nikki will post it in the comments.
It's right on the tip of my tongue, but I can't think of it. Yeah. Well, the last person, said last Sunday's message pricked my conscience. It was a good reminder for me to stay vertical with God and not horizontal with the world. This was our Salt of the Earth sermon. It was politically, in this politically charged, hateful environment we are living in, God keeps reminding me to be a peacemaker and have sharing the gospel. Or a peacemaker in the environment we are living in. God keeps reminding me to be a peacemaker and keep sharing the gospel. I have been asking for years, where were the Christians back in 1861? What were they doing? How could they go to church and then condone slavery? You answered it. They got horizontal. Thank you for the messages and thank you for listening to the Holy Ghost. This is pretty cool.
Yeah, it most certainly was. And it kind of made us have to think a little bit of where we try to maintain a vertical connection, but we get very caught up in our own horizontalness as well. And
how can we not? We live here.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus even prayed it in his prayer. He said, I don't want to take them out of the world, but I'm sending them into it. And there's a difference between living here and being sent here. That's a big difference. Big difference between living here. Sent, you come with purpose.
Yeah.
And there's this unity that comes together that it's not just unifying because it's can't we all get along. It's unifying because the purpose of the gospel is not heard if it's not felt. So it's understandable that we get horizontal. We're blasted every day with the political arguments, the race arguments, the personal lenses that we all have, our personal experience, the places that we've been hurt in life, and that shapes the way we think. And how can I love a group of people who have come out against me, who have hated on me, those in the minorities who've been had this prejudice against them, those in the majority who have had an opposite reaction, understandable on both sides, but very painful to live out. And if we only look at the horizontal, we won't have the purpose that the vertical relationship with God that offers me to be sent in this world and not just live in this world.
Yeah. Shane, how do we, I feel like when we're in the middle of a series like this and we're getting these constant weekly reminders twice a week, with people watch the sermon and then live, to guard ourselves against those threats that are around us all the time to go horizontal. How do we progress from here and making sure we're staying rooted in this so that we don't allow ourselves to become vulnerable to such going forward? Are there things that we can take advantage of, even though this series and the formal Lift Up RVA is coming to an end for the time being?
Well, I think there's several steps we could take. Number one, get out of your comfort zone. Maybe that means to you, let's make a few applications, and I won't drill this into the ground, but if you're an Xer, get to know a builder. If you're a builder, get to know an Xer. Get involved with Gen Z. Understand, read about them. There are so many great books about generational differences and how people see things differently. Some of it's, I see things this way when I'm young, and then I see things this way when I'm older, and everything in between. But others of it are real shifts in the way people think. And we tend to think our way of thinking is the best. Get to know someone outside your generation.
Get uncomfortable.
Yeah, get to know somebody outside of your gender. Get to know somebody in the right way, not in the wrong way. But I'm saying, get to know groups of people safely and appropriately.
Yeah.
But get to know people outside of your race. Take a look. I mean, I was challenged by Erebon a few years ago when we hosted the conference here, and David Bailey from Erebon got up and said, take the contacts test. It's really simple. Look at your contacts. If you're a white person, how many African American people are in your contact list that are friends? Do you have any friends that are African American? If you're African American, how many friends do you have that are white? If you're how many friends do you have that are Asian? How many friends do you have that are Indian? How many friends do you have that are African?
Older, of the other gender, all sorts of things.
That are
Yes,
from the
exactly.
Middle East. We have so many people from Middle Eastern.
Mm-hmm.
How many friends do you have any friends? Well, I'm like, what are you saying? I have to be friends with. What I'm saying is the next step could be for some people to get out of their comfort zone. That's all. To get out of your comfort zone, to get to know somebody, to serve somebody that's not in your wheelhouse, so to speak.
Yeah. I think another way would probably be to take advantage of our small group opportunities as well, right? Because it's there with when you're with a group, trying to grow better in Christ and grow in better relationship with others, and you got that accountability. And I know coming up this next month, we'll be
next month.
reigniting small groups.
Next month, we're going to be re-upping our how you get in. We're going to giving an entryway for everyone in our entire church to get involved in a small group. And if you're not in a small group right now, a smaller group of people, that just means, in our circle, that just means we just believe that not everything's about rows, that things are better in circles than they are rows. And getting together with a group of people who have, you could get together for all kinds of reasons. Jeremy, our small groups pastor, is going to be telling you tons of different ways that you can get involved in a small group.
Yeah.
That forces you to not only do life with another group of people, but also to learn from them, to share with them, to have a place that you can be yourself and really be real and do life.
Right. Folks can even combine these two things.
Yeah.
So you can have a small group that goes to East End Cemetery every other week and continues the project there, right?
And many of them do. In fact, our small groups did a ton of our service projects this summer with Lift Up RVA.
Yeah, so that would be a great way to continue lifting up RVA. Shane, as I'm putting you a little bit on the spot here, but we've got a big milestone coming up in just over 6 months when we hit our 50th birthday on March 2nd of next year.
Yeah, that's true.
So to me, it's an amazing thing that we've had this summer of Lift Up RVA, but I know you're dreaming and hoping for God, praying for God is going to do even more as we go into 2019. And I think sometimes we kind of get that thought of like, wow, isn't it a coincidence? Of course, there's nothing coincidence with God, but I love that we've had this prep just as we're getting ready to move into our next 50 years. Any thoughts in regards to Lift Up RVA for 2019?
Yeah, that is putting me on the spot.
Yes, I am.
My only thought is this, that yes,
Pray for it, everyone.
we need to lift up our city again as a church, and I'd love to open the door. I'd love to open the door for new ways of doing that. I'd love to open the door for not just new ways to serve our city, but new ways to gather people to serve our city and more people, maybe not just our church even, other churches, and how we get involved in that. So it's something we're praying and thinking and working through. Love for you to join us in praying, thinking through this and working through it as well. And just pray that God leads us to really lift up our city in a significant way. All we want is this. We want people to experience the love of God in the context in which Jesus modeled for us, in relationship and service, and that's how we want our city to feel the love of God, for us to be his hands and feet in expressing that love. So pray for us as we figure out the best possible way to do that next year as well.
Please join us in prayer for that. And one thing that's really exciting, every year, you just mentioned expressing our love for God. We're about to venture into our Glorious Christmas Night season here very shortly with the kickoff in just a few weeks. So if folks are watching and have not been involved in a theatrical production, either on stage or behind stage or just helping out with techniques, this is an opportunity for them to actually continue to lift up RVA as we venture into this fall and winter.
Do I get half of what Bob paid you to make that announcement?
Sure, he paid me zero, so I hope you don't mind.
I get half of nothing,
zero.
half of nothing.
Yes. You're welcome, Bob.
Maybe the tech crew needs some people, I don't know.
The tech crew can always use some people.
What an amazing event that we do every year. 25,000 people come in to experience the Christmas story told in a unique and powerful way. And that is a collective group of, it takes hundreds of people to pull that off. And so, if you've never been involved in a that maybe you've been very involved in productions and you're somewhere watching this in the Richmond vicinity and you'd love to be involved. We're going to have that kickoff first week of September.
That's right.
On a Thursday, and love to have you there and come hear about the story that we're going to tell this year. And then we get to work. So roll up your sleeves with us and come tell the story on stage.
Yeah, and what I love about GCN is there's so many stories like these that you just read that come out of that every year, for sure. Well, Shane, before we close too, there is I think a lot of something that's really been a continual theme through City on a Hill is really gaining perspective.
Yeah.
And in fact, we did have someone that texted in a question during your sermon this past Sunday, and I want to quickly address that before we sign off. The question is basically the book, Difficult Conversations, which was talked about during Thursday and Friday's Global Leadership Summit, for those that don't know. That book came to this individual's mind when you talked about unity this past Sunday. And their question is basically, if we only understood other folks, we could better unify and understand. Do you agree with that, and what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Sheila Heen brought up that point in Difficult Conversations in her talk, who wrote that book. She brought up this point that when we come into conversations, there's two conversations happening. There's the one everyone hears, or the other person hears, and then you have the thoughts in your head. In my case, I think there's 6 conversations going on, but that's okay. We don't want to diagnose me on live Facebook or YouTube.
Yes.
I don't know what we'd come up with, but I might need a lot of medication. You can send me your suggestions.
Next live, we'll have Shane on a couch. No, I'm just kidding.
So, but you know, there's always that internal voice going on, and she brings up the point that we have to recognize when we come into a conversation of what's really happening. Our perspective of what's happening is not reality, because the only way you could know reality is if I knew your perspective. I'd have to know what's going on in your internal voice and my internal voice, and somehow we'd have to get them together to have a real discussion. That would be reality. Since that can't happen, she suggests some things in that book to discover what your internal voice is really about. It's really about identity. It's really about sometimes blame, about not wanting our own insecurities, of not wanting to be at fault, wanting to make sure that we're not at fault, because then that hurts our value. Sometimes it's about our identity of wrapped up in what needs to happen. The outcome is attached to my identity somehow. And you have to weed through that. Yeah. And we've been talking a lot about this, and Difficult Conversations it's a great question in light of the series that we've been in. Yeah. Because people are afraid to have difficult conversations because they think that they use the word agenda as like in the question, right? So I think that's the part that makes us afraid. Because we read someone's Facebook post and we automatically know what agenda is behind their statement or their question. And so we rather not have that conversation. If you're like me, I just don't have time for that kind of horizontal wasted energy, so I just start defriending or unfollowing or whatever, because it's like, you know what, if it's just going to be, you have to decide for yourself. If it's going to be nothing but this person's constant agenda, you know, you can't do anything by arguing it out on Facebook. Real relationships, having a conversation and sitting down and learning. I agree with you who wrote that in. If we could understand what's behind it, that's Sheila Heen's point, is understand, why is this person's identity attached to this? Why are they most concerned about the outcome? Why are they worried that they're at fault? And then what is their real concern about the outcome of this situation? What do they think is going to happen if they admit this or you know, and stop looking at it as one side wins and one side loses. But start looking at it as, how can both sides understand each other, and the truth, that we meet the truth in the middle. Not that the truth changes. Relatively speaking, I'm saying that the truth be known and truly understood, which means I have to understand your perspective. I have to actually ask you questions that don't involve my own agenda, that actually makes the agenda understanding you and better understanding your perspective, which means I need to understand your background. I have to know what makes you think. I have to know what you have vested in this conversation. Have you ever gotten in a conversation with somebody and in the middle of it you're like, what is going on? Like, I just asked a simple question and they're like blowing up. Like, what is happening? What's happening is so much more than you realize, and you have to be willing to realize that the anger is coming from somewhere. Find out. If you made your conversation the agenda of your conversation, actually finding out and being willing to discover and set aside your own agenda and actually be willing to discover someone else's and what's behind it, what made them so emotional about this point. And the other person was willing to do the same thing. You can not only survive the difficult conversation, you can thrive at it. And something beautiful can come out of it. I'll end where I began, which is we become united for our city. We become united for Richmond. We are united for Christ. And that's what Jesus said would be the proof that he was sent by God. That would be the power behind him being sent by God. And that would be the purpose of carrying the message of God forward.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you very much for that, Shane. I appreciate that. And I'm sure, hopefully, this person asked that question got to hear your response either now or is able to watch it on demand at a later time. Now, Shane, we're going to be venturing into a new series.
Yeah, starting this week.
Into what impact does this closing message of this series on unity, how is that impacting you as you start to craft this next series?
I'll tell you, God knows what he's doing. Because I knew about the series, both series, a long time ago. And I did not anticipate how God would use this series to prepare me for the next.
Nice.
I thought they would be detached. I thought one would be more about something a little different and than what it's become. And City on a Hill sets up perfectly the next series, which is entitled, starting this Sunday. Here's the sneak peek. You ready for this? Sneak peek. This Sunday, we kick off a brand new series entitled Mist. Finding the things that last forever. So our lives, in James 4, it says our lives are just a vapor. They appear for a little time and then they vanish away. So we better make sure that we're focused on the things that last forever.
Yeah.
So what does that look like? And it's not just the typical things that you might imagine. Obviously serving and leaving that's going to leave a mark. But I think unity really plays into that.
Yeah.
And I think if we start with the end of this series, boy, we've got a great stepping stone into what God has for us in Mist and finding the things that last forever.
All right, excellent. Well, very much looking forward to that. And I hope you are as well, viewers. And so please join us for that, the start of Mist coming up this next Sunday at 10 a.m. Please look forward to your joining us either here on site or online for that.
3 services on site at one time. Imagine that.
Yes.
Come experience the chaos.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Shane. Appreciate it. And I think we want to give another welcome to the newest members of our staff, Dave and Amy.
Dave and Amy DeMasters joined us officially, and our new oversight pastor overseeing care ministries, family ministries, and counseling. Excited about that.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty awesome. So I hope you all get to meet him at some point, him and Amy. All right. Well, thank you, Shane. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And if you have any other further questions that pop up later point, feel free to get in touch with us online, or you can email Shane at any time at shane@weag.org. And be happy to answer those questions. Have a blessed day.
Thank you.